meeting of this special meeting of the Board of Selectmen literally in the same room at the same time. We're very efficient. So for that reason, I'm going to open the meeting, and there's at least there are 4 members of the 5 present, and immediately I am now recessing the Action Committee in deference to the work of the Board of Selectmen. We will resume the work of the Action Committee as soon as the Board of Selectmen have concluded their work. Thank you.
Before I start, I'll make an announcement. I am requesting that all cell phones and electronic devices be turned off on their mute position as to not disturb the meeting. Any member of the public also has a right to make an audio or video recording of an open session of a public meeting. A member of the public who wishes to record a meeting must first notify the chair and must comply with reasonable requirements regarding audio or video equipment established by the chair so as not to interfere with the meeting. The chair is required to inform other attendees of such recording at the beginning of the meeting. There is someone that's recording today. And with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order. First thing on the agenda, we need a clerk.
I move that Selectman Winslow is clerk.
Motion made. Second by necessity. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Mrs. Winslow is now the clerk. Roll call, please.
Mr. Chair, there are 3 selectmen present. Mrs. Begley, Mr. Cruz, Mrs. Winslow, as well as Town Clerk, Mrs. Marianne Silva, and Town Administrator, Mr. Mark Andrews. Selectman Holmes and Selectman Schneider are absent.
Okay, thank you very much. Want to go into the agenda?
Mr. Chair, the only agenda item this evening is discussion whether to seek special legislation to allow the forthcoming vacancy on the Board of Selectmen to be filled at the annual election, or whether it should be filled at a special election, and to act in furtherance of the results of this decision.
Okay, we do have a summary letter. We're going to vote on, or make a motion anyways for this. But before we start, I'd like Mary Ann, the town clerk, to give us the breakdown on how this is going to work and the dates that we have. Mrs. Silva.
Okay. Good evening, Mary Ann Silva. First of all, in order to request special legislation, it has to go through the Board of Selectmen. If the Board of Selectmen choose and they vote to proceed with that, they would then instruct me as town clerk to make the nomination papers for the seat that would be vacated, or is, according to the Secretary of State's office, it is vacated. And I have to act as if it is vacated. They would have to direct me to make the nomination papers available, which would be available immediately. And we're talking tomorrow morning. It would be 2 years left on the term, and the papers would be separate from the 3-year position that is now available. It's 2 separate seats. They asked me to break down dates, and we did speak with the Secretary of State's office, Michelle Tassineri, who is their legal counsel, and we did work out a schedule. Again, like I'll repeat myself. Nomination papers would be ready immediately. Nomination papers shall be filed with the Board of Registrars for certification of signatures no later than 5 p.m. on Friday, February 24th. Excuse my voice, I have a cold. The Board of Registrars shall complete certification of signatures on such papers no later than 12 noon on Monday, February 27th. Such nomination papers shall be filed with the town clerk no later than 5 p.m. on Tuesday, February 28th. The last day to object or withdraw shall be no later than 5 p.m. on Thursday, March 1st, 2012. Of course, the last day to register to vote remains the same, and all other dates remain the same.
Any questions from the board? Mr. Begley.
So just to clarify, Mary Ann, it would be, the nomination papers would be available tomorrow, and those that pulled the nomination papers for the two-year seat have until the 24th to return them.
Yes. Michelle Tassinari also instructed us that any person that pulled the papers for the 3-year term, if they decide that they want to pursue the 2-year term, they have to withdraw their nomination papers from the 3-year position.
And then go through the process again?
And then go through, then it's the 50 signatures, it's the whole
Okay,
process
the whole
again.
process again, so
Right.
that they can't just
Their
switch.
papers right now that I have certified do not count towards the 2-year position.
Right.
They start brand new.
Mrs. Winslow?
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. So, based on that schedule, Mrs. Silva, people would have 6 business days to take out and return their papers. Because
Yes.
Monday is a holiday, and your office will not be open.
Yes.
Okay. And in those 6 business days is also a school vacation week. So people who may travel, because it's a vacation week many people take, what do we do about that if somebody were to take out their papers but they're not going to be back in town by next Friday?
I don't know what you expect me to say to that. They would have to figure out some way to get the papers to us. They wouldn't have to bring it to us. They could designate somebody. They could write a letter, get it notarized, and designate a person to bring the letters to us. I mean, the nomination papers, I'm sorry, with the letter.
And as opposed to the, you already answered one of my questions, which was the registering to vote, so thank you. As opposed to special legislation, how much does a special election cost? I've seen a lot of numbers thrown out there from $10,000 to $40,000, so
Not 40.
thank you.
What happens, it depends on the number of staff that I have available to work that day. I actually have 60, I think it's up to 63 poll workers that I am responsible for, that I have to train. But not all 63 workers work an election. So it would depend on the number of staff that I have working that day. And the hours. State elections are more expensive, but the state elections, they actually reimburse us for the extended polling hours. I think we receive $4,900 a year during state elections. But on a town election, it doesn't, certainly with one position on the ballot, if you did a special, it's not going to take long to count it. When it's in with this election, if you put it on the ballot now, you're going to save, in my opinion, as town clerk, that $10,000 to $15,000, because it depends on how many staff I have working.
So, but it's roughly 10 to 15,000.
Yes.
Okay. And as our elections expert, do you have any reservations about this process, this shortened process?
I've already been through it once with when Mary Jane Pillsbury had resigned. We went through it in 2007.
Right.
There was no issue with it. It went, from my recollection, it went smoothly.
But that process began a lot earlier.
Right. About 2 weeks earlier.
Yeah. And you've already given us the schedule and the amount of time. There won't be any other aspects of the election that are changed, correct?
No, it all
Just-
remains the same.
Just this?
Yes.
Okay.
And it just affects that one position, because tonight at 5 was the last night to turn in papers. They had to be in today, 5 o'clock. And all the papers on my end have already been certified. The Board of Registrars will be in within the next few days to do their part.
Okay. And you said that as far as you were concerned, the seat is vacated. One of the questions that keeps coming to me is, can a resignation be rescinded? And if so, what impact does that have on this process?
The information I received today was that it could not be rescinded.
Okay.
Is that? Yeah, that's what I was told today. Could not be rescinded.
Okay. And I know that you had mentioned that to me, but I just
Well, that
think,
was one of my
yeah,
concerns.
it's important that we make sure that we're clear,
Right.
you know, and that people understand this process. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, there aren't any other questions. Since on this process, we only have one option. It's going to be the same as it was taking place when the Pillsbury resignation was in place. So what I'll do is I'll need a motion.
I'll make a
Okay,
motion.
what I'll need is a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Cruz. I move to petition the governor to submit special legislation on the town's behalf to permit the vacant selectman seat to be filled at the April 3rd annual town election.
Motion made. I need a second.
Mr. Chair, I'll second for discussion.
Second for discussion. Discussion. Mrs. Winslow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I have a lot of concerns about the expedited process that we're looking to embark upon, and mostly my concern is the opportunity to pull papers just passed us a few days ago, and there were 3 interested individuals. If there's anybody out there that may have had an interest in running for a vacant selectman seat, they're now being asked to make that decision, pull papers, put together a campaign committee, meet other deadlines such as fundraising, opening campaign accounts, and all kinds of other things rather quickly. Then those papers have to be back. And that's notwithstanding the fact that if that individual happens to be a parent and had planned on being on vacation next week, or on vacation because they felt like being on vacation, that even further shortens their opportunity. I believe that the town, the voters, and any potential candidate should have a full election process. And while I understand that there are occasions when we may have to shorten that process, I simply don't feel comfortable shortening it to this effect. Monday is a holiday. We're talking about 6 business days. That's just not a lot of time to make a decision like that, which requires an enormous commitment of time. It's a financial decision, and a decision that has to be reached amongst your family. It's not just your decision. And I just think that as far as the candidates go, the candidates that would potentially emerge and the voters that would eventually vote for them deserve a full process.
Thank you very much. Any other
Thank you,
questions?
Mr. Cruz.
Mr. Begley?
Just to address some of those issues, there have been people who have taken out papers on the last possible hour that you can possibly take them, and return them within 2 days. And yes, there are only 6 business days, but there's a week. I mean, there's a week to get 50 signatures, and once those signatures are submitted, after that, the process can begin for getting campaign committee together, having opening up bank accounts, getting signs, those kinds of things. I mean, as it is, fortunately, the local election is a shortened process. I mean, the presidential election kind of goes on and on and on for 2 years, but this is a shortened process. And I think in order to save the town money, I think that anybody that may have been considering for the 3-year seat may find the 2-year seat attractive. And who knows how many candidates that we'll have available. But in order to save the town money and to expedite the process, we already have a precedent set. This has happened before in 2007, and I strongly urge this board to vote for the special legislation.
Mr.
Any other
Cruz.
question?
I just want to state that this is not a similar situation. That situation began at the very end of January, and papers were available around the 1st of February, leaving people almost as much time. I mean, papers had only been available for a week and a half. And this is a very shortened process, and this is a very big decision. It's not the kind of decision, people may take out papers on the last day. Maybe they've, had a moment of, oh, I want to do this, but sometimes they do it for purely political reasons and strategic reasons. We don't know how other people think and what they do. Some people take out papers on the first day, some people take out papers on the last day. I think that we're trying to attach a cost to something that really doesn't have a price tag on it. We're talking about a full, fair, democratic process, giving both the candidates and the voters a fair election process. And I don't think that 6 business days is a fair election process, especially during a time when we have a school vacation week. That really concerns me, that people may have already made plans to be out of town. And for them, it's really a 2-day process, unless they can get a notary, find somebody that's willing to be responsible. I just think that we have a greater duty to the community and, quite frankly, to the candidate that wants to fill these chairs. Everybody that's sitting up here understands that this is a big commitment. It's not 3 hours on a Tuesday night. It's a lot of time. We've all put a lot of time into this, I'm sure. We've had questions from the public. We've had questions from the media. We've made our own contacts and reached out to people to get answers to the questions that are coming to us. This is a big deal. And, I think that we spend money on all kinds of things that we don't necessarily have to. I think this is an investment in the future of the community.
Point well made, but for past experience, I'm going to give you my own. I took out papers on a Friday. Nomination paper was ended on a Monday, and it was to turn back in on a Wednesday. I had it all in, and within a couple of days, I got my finance people together, campaign manager together, so it can be done. I want to give you 2 sides of the story. It can be done, and it's all on scheduling. And if you can't schedule that, and it is a commitment, I'm going to tell you it is a commitment. I spent all day today with Mr. Andrews, town clerk, Rich Bowen, running every aspect down to make sure that we had our I's and T's done. And we did it. And if it was not for that, I wouldn't have went for it neither. But it can be done. It's going to save us $10,000 to $15,000. And if there's people out there that's interested, they should have stepped up. If they were thinking about selectmen, they would have thought about it when the first seat opened. And now this is even a bigger opportunity for them to run for this one. Questions are done. We'll take a vote. The motion was, you want to repeat it or I can read it?
I move to petition the governor to submit special legislation on the town's behalf to permit the vacant selectman seat to be filled at the April 3rd annual town election.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
No.
2-1. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that ends our special call meeting.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Made to adjourn. It's the majority. We have a majority of the board seated, and it's 2-1. No,
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. All in favor?
I seconded it.
Say, okay.